Welcome back to Magoo's Reviews. All right, y'all. So recently, Drake did an interview with Bobby Anceloff. That's the interview where she sits down in the bed with people and talks to them and everything. Has interviews with them. Now he has done interviews with her before in the past, right? One thing I will say about this interview, there's two things I really want to highlight, and this comes from Billboard.com. They talk about 6 different things, but 2 things I want to focus on is that his relationship with hip hop media right now, and why he went to Bobby. And more importantly, him be considered a culture vulture, in hip hop and stuff like that. Now, these are Drake's own words, and he speaks on it, right? Goes on to say, this is from Drake. What we did changed a lot of things for a lot of people. It was me just recognizing somebody that I never met in my life that I fully believed in. He's talking about him and Bobby. It pissed off all those effing losers. Again, this is Drake words. It pissed off all those effing losers and story journalists who feel so entitled to this interview. Drake never does anything for this type of media, and it makes people so angry, right? So that's the first thing I want to focus on, right? In hip-hop media and circus, you have a lot of Drake pro people, right? The Joe Budden podcast is a great example. Joe Budden podcast, for the most part, is very pro Drake. You know what I'm saying? You have like Ish and other people over there, who like Drake, and they're very pro Drake, no matter what. You know what I'm saying? You have Rory and Maul. Very pro Drake, you know what I'm saying? Even Math Hoffa, to a extent, he's very pro Drake, you know what I'm saying? And of course, you have the Angie Martinez, the Elliott Wilsons, a lot of great people in our culture and stuff like that who getting classic interviews over time. One thing I would say, even for the pro Drake podcasts and streamers and interviewers, at the end of the day, they're still going to ask those questions that he's not ready to answer. Especially with the battle with Kendrick. This is the biggest battle we've seen in a very long time. It is. And regardless if they're pro Drake or not, they're going to ask him those questions. They may try to sugarcoat it a little bit, but at the same time, they're going to, hey, man, how did you feel when you dropped Family Matters and he dropped Meet the Grams 30 minutes later or something like that? What was going on through your mind? You know what I'm saying? How did you feel when Not Like Us dropped? You know what I'm saying? How did you feel like when he broke down you going to the, different Atlanta rappers, which I'm going to touch on later on as far as the whole Culture Vulture aspect. How do you feel about a lot of these things? You know what I'm saying? They're going to ask him those questions, even if it is a pro Drake, like interview or stuff like that. They're still going to ask him those questions I think he's not ready to answer. This Bobby Anceloff interview was very him controlling the narrative, his pace and everything like that. He touched on a few things, but at the same time, you can tell he does have a disdain for, hip hop media right now. You know what I'm saying? Because in the past, he has talked to Angie Martinez or Elliott Wilson and stuff like that. And they still have asked him questions. Like when Angie Martinez say, oh, I'd like to see you and Kendrick get into it. Oh, yeah, I'm sure you would. Like saying, he kind of was brushing it off, or, even Elliott Wilson, when he talked about the whole control thing. They're going to ask some things in his career, especially for me, if I'm interviewing Drake. What's up with this lawsuit, homie? We've never seen that before. We've never seen that. What's up with this lawsuit? Because at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, as a man, your actions is what makes you as a man. You know what I'm saying? How you move and how he moved pro-battle after this, post-battle, after this whole thing with Kendrick, really did prove to me who Drake really is. You know what I'm saying? He said in that song, I'll self-destruct. He's definitely self-destructing. You know what I'm saying? We've never seen this before. And I think one thing about hip-hop culture and media, what they've done wrong with Drake is you let him slide way too much. You call it Drake, whereas you wouldn't use it with any other rapper. Early 2000s when Nas and Jay-Z got back and forth, you know what I'm saying, when they were going into it, if we found out one of them had ghostwriters, if we found out one of them did a lawsuit after, the culture would have shunned them. There wouldn't be no more career. It'd be, you out. Because back then, man, there was a sense of gatekeeping still. And I think with Drake, man, Drake was really, he was the perfect Trojan horse. You know what I'm saying? You got this half black, half white guy. You know what I'm saying? He was the perfect Trojan horse, you know what I'm saying? And I think that, and I'm not trying to knock his fans down, anything like that. You know what I'm saying? If you like him, you like him. But at the same time, I feel like he was the perfect Trojan horse, whereas a lot of times you wouldn't allow this to go with any other rapper. You know what I'm saying? Even if Kendrick was doing this, hip hop culture would be like, nah, bro, that's not right. You know what I mean? But with Drake, yeah, he's been able to slide on a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? I think this Bobby interview was definitely him controlling the narrative and the conversation and everything like that. Goes on to say, you know what I mean? Him being considered a culture vulture, right? Now, this is Drake's own words. It's the same way even in music. People will be like, oh, you're a culture vulture. Or people will describe the collaborative efforts that I put forth and the artists that I picked up and lifted up or shown a light as me taking, he explained. They'll put a negative spin on it and try to tell me if it's self-serving thing or whatever, and I'll think I get really sensitive about that, right? Drake talked about him being a culture vulture. Drake was put on by the South. The beginning of Drake's career, him standing next to Wayne, Nicki standing next to Wayne, that did wonders for their careers. You know what I'm saying? Lil Wayne back then was the biggest rapper. You know what I'm saying? And Drake standing right there, and next to Wayne. On top of that, having those collaborations with Rick Ross, with Future, with Migos, with 21 Savage. Man, when Kendrick broke it down, Not Like Us, you know what I'm saying? You ran to Atlanta when you need to check. Bro, when he broke that down, I was like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought about it, I knew about it, but then when you look back at his career, it's like, yeah, bro, the South really did put you on. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of times, when people say, hey, man, you using the fake accents and all that kind of stuff, like, yeah, you're appropriating other people's cultures. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, that's, yeah. I'll put it like that, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I think when Kendrick really did break that down and stuff, I know like the Breakfast Club, they say, well, they don't see Drake as culture vultures and stuff like that. But there are people who do. There are people who do out here. You know what I'm saying? I think that, that definitely did upset him as well. He doesn't like being called that. And again, if Drake went to the hip hop medias or the interviewers, they're going to ask him these questions. They're going to ask him these questions, and he's not ready to, because at the end of the day, like I said, even if they're pro Drake, they're still going to want to know certain things. And I think, like he said, he's very sensitive about it. He might up and walk out the interview because it really does. Like, this whole battle really did affect Drake. It affected him in a very big way. I've never seen a rapper self-destruct like this post-battle. Never, 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 never. Like I said before, after the Hard Part 6 drop, which was trash, not the one on GNX, it's this record, I said, yo, he needs to take a break. He needs to take a break, but he did everything wrong post-battle, and it's just, you know what I'm saying, him just like tumbling down a hill. It's like an avalanche. You know what I'm saying? It's getting bigger, bigger, bigger until it crashes out. But at the same time, yeah, we shall see. People saying there's a part 2 or there's another part of this interview. We're going to see what else he has to speak on. But yeah, man, as far as Drake going to hip-hop media and stuff like that, nah, that's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? I don't see it happening because, you know what I'm saying, like he sits here and talks about, Zane Lowe, throwing the softball questions and all that. But hey, man, this is the same thing right here. It's exactly the same thing, So, hey, we shall see what happens next. Of course, the Iceman project, whenever it drops, it drops. You know what I'm saying? We shall see at the end of the day. Hey, man, I don't know. Anyway, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hope everybody has a blessed day, and I'll see y'all soon. Have a good one.